All right, well, we saw him in kickboxing just a couple of weeks ago, and now an MMA debut dawns on Ruben Rivera in just a couple of weeks up in Price, Utah. Ruben, great to talk to you, my man. How you been?
Doing good, boss. Great to talk to you too.
It's great to talk to you. I think you did so well in that debut kickboxing bout. And we talked a little bit before, and you were talking about how excited you were for an MMA debut. It comes sooner than you might have thought. How are you feeling coming into July 26th?
I'm pumped up. I'm ready for it. The kickboxing was a nice, getting some reps out there, getting in front of the crowd, kind of getting the feel for it a little bit. I know MMA is going to be a whole different thing in itself, but I'm super excited and super pumped up for it.
How did you feel in that kickboxing debut? You talked about getting the reps and getting that experience in terms of just completely new venture for you because this was, you had never done MMA, first time doing kickboxing as well. What was that like for you?
It was a lot. It was a lot of good. Let me say it that way. It's a completely different game in there. I like to say I push myself day in and day out in training, and being in there, you got to control your breathing, you got to control your punches, you got to control everything a whole lot different, kind of slow it down a little bit. So it was nice eye opener for me. Now I know what I need to change, what I need to adjust a little bit. But overall, the experience was great. You guys hold an amazing event. It was nice having all my family and friends there supporting, and it was just good that I was able to pull it off.
What about it was a lot beyond just the in fight part? Because that's obviously all the training, but then there's new stuff like the weight cut, the weigh ins, a lot of things on social media, the walkout, being in front of all these people at the Masonic Temple. How did you adjust to all of that being a first timer?
It was kind of all just adjusting in the moment.
Yeah.
Doing the weigh-ins, it was nice. Being able to go and kind of step into the venue. At that time, they had the octagon set up, so it was a little bit different. But just being able to get a feel for what it was going to be like stepping in there, so it's not completely brand new when I'm doing my walkout. I feel like that was a nice little helper for me. Just the walkout itself, also, it was really, really exciting. I got my nerves under control for the most part, but I also caught myself as I was walking out and in the back when Coach Marcos was wrapping up my hands. Heart started pumping a little bit, started all becoming real in the moment, sitting in the locker room with all the fighters and everything. You feed off everybody's energy and everybody's amped up, ready to go and put on a show. And it was cool being the first one because I didn't have to sit back there for too long. I got there, got checked in and everything, and just got right to business. So it was nice.
What were those nerves like for you in the back? The hand wrap. I've always heard that the hand wrap is really when it starts to get real for those fighters because it's like, there's no going back now. I'm pretty much staged for this thing. What kind of, I don't know if doubt is the right word, but what kind of thoughts were creeping into your mind?
That's what I would say it was is doubt. I try to keep my thoughts and everything in control because your mind's a powerful thing, and that's one thing I talk about with my coaches and everything is, you think it, you believe in, you can make it happen. So I always try to do my best, and for the most of the training camp, I wasn't letting those negative thoughts or doubts pop into my head. I would always put myself in check. But as I was getting the hands wrapped, I started hearing those doubts come back in, and it was time to really push them out because it was the moment. I didn't want that happening.
Have you been able to watch back the fight? I'm assuming you have.
Yes, sir. I have.
How did you feel about your performance and how did you like seeing yourself compete and maybe learn things that you want to improve on in the next one?
It was nice. It was awesome seeing myself perform on that stage. It's something that I've always dreamed about. So to be able to finally be able to even be on the stage for just the kickboxing, I know it's just the start of my venture for MMA and everything, but super cool and super eye opening. A lot of things that I realized I got to work on. I talked about wanting to dictate where the fight goes, and I feel like I did that well, starting off quick, but kind of a little too hot. Notice that I don't need to put everything on my punches. I don't need to be trying to take his head off with every single hit. Control my breathing a little bit more, control my aggression, and kind of go at a better pace is one of the main things that I learned.
Okay, so that actually brings me to an interesting point. 2 minute rounds. Now in July, you're going to be in 3 minute rounds with MMA. How important do you think it was? And do you think that maybe you would have been worse off going into your MMA bout and maybe throwing with so much velocity and so much of your gas tank that maybe it would have been a little bit tougher as you got into those later rounds? Because you went 6 minutes, you could have gone nine if you were in MMA.
Most definitely, most definitely. I say that humbly and honestly. I've talked to my coaches, I've talked to my family about it. Don't want to say thankfully, but in my favor, it wasn't any longer because I did feel gassed out. It's the most tired I've been, and that can't be happening, especially when it's going to be a longer bout, and I do have to get that in check quick.
Have you changed your cardiovascular training for this MMA bout, knowing that it is going to be longer?
Yes, sir. Just a little bit more. Like I always push myself in training. I do a lot of the boxing classes and everything up at Rise to kind of help with the cardio. One thing that I'm going to really emphasize is just back on the sprints. I did a lot of hikes and kind of running, but not sprint-based things, and I need to get on that. We've been implementing the assault bike also into some of my training to kind of make sure that's always happening a couple times a week. So we'll get that dialed in, and we'll have to worry about that coming up.
Are you based out of Park City or where do you commute to get up there?
Yes, sir. So I was raised in Park City most of my life, born in California, but moved out here at a really young age. Grew up in Salt Lake for a little bit, but most of the majority of my life has been here in Park City.
So that's how you ended up at Rise over anything else.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just got blessed enough to find the gym that everybody has here, and it was nice. Fit right in.
So many UFC fighters, when they talk about coming to Utah, they try to get some sort of living arrangement for a couple of weeks out in Park City because of the heightened elevation. Do you think that's helped you as well?
Yes, sir. I really do. It's kind of hard to say because obviously my last performance it didn't show too much, but there's times where I really do feel like it helped me out a lot. There's just going down into the valley and training it sometimes, or just going down and training at other gyms. I feel like my gas tank is a little bit better than it is up here, just because I'm used to training up here.
Rise Boxing has been around for a handful of years at this point. When did you specifically get there? Because I know you've been training for years.
So I honestly, within the past 2 years, I know that they've been there for over like 5 years, and unfortunately, I didn't even know that we had the gym here just for the longest time. And then finally, word to mouth, I got told that they were finally implementing some MMA and Muay Thai jiu-jitsu classes, and for the longest time my brother and I like have been trying to do this for a while. We've just never really pulled the trigger, and it was just great that when we finally decided to pull the trigger, it's right when the gym started opening up all the other classes and everything. So it just worked out perfect.
Talk to me a little bit about your brother. You come from a family of fighters. I believe it was on my board that your dad, your brother, and yourself have been training together for years. And then obviously you find Rise Boxing about 2 years ago. But tell me a little bit about your family dynamic and all the fighters that you have.
So growing up, as soon as we moved out here into Utah, my dad and a couple of my uncles and cousins, they got to meet one of their really close buddies. He's actually a sergeant down in Salt Lake now, but when they first moved up here, he had his own little boxing gym, and he would always push them, to go show up at the gym, kind of keep them out of trouble, keep them busy and everything. And a couple of my family members really shined in it. My cousin, he's a little bit older. He actually was one of the first ones to compete, and he was just like, he saw it in him, he saw the potential, so he really pushed it. And then just from that, my dad started tagging along with them, and my dad fell in love with it too. He never, unfortunately, never got to compete, but he has a passion for boxing, and that's where all of that comes from. Growing up my whole life, it was hitting pads with my dad, throwing on the gloves with my little brother, and just getting some rounds in. And then my brother himself, he's hopefully you guys will be seeing him soon. He trains just as hard as me day in and day out, and it's nice having a younger brother. He's bigger than I am, so it's eye opener when I tell him he's my little brother, but he's like my main training partner, and it's nice having that push, that brotherly push with each other. I'm grateful for it, and I'm blessed to be able to come from a family like that.
Is your brother at Rise as well at this point?
Yes, sir, he is.
Very cool. What
He's
weight class
also
is
been
he?
training for the same amount of time. He had an injury come up when we did a jiu-jitsu tournament, kind of set him back a little bit, but he's still just in the gym day in and day out trying to hope for an opportunity.
What weight class is he at?
He's going to be fighting, I think it's at 55 is what he's going to try to cut down to.
Okay. Interesting. You talked about your size and your stature, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that because you are a flyweight. What's it like being over at Rise, and what kind of bodies are you able to work with? I mean, when you think of Rise Boxing, you think of the heavyweight champion, Cat Mafileo, or the former heavyweight champion, Cat Mafileo. Think of Chris Ventura, who's a 55er, your brother, who you just mentioned, cutting down to 55 as well. Who are you getting your reps with?
So a little bit of all of them. Obviously
Yeah.
not Kent. I've never had the pleasure to get any rounds with Canton yet. I think that's more of a safety for me on my end. But besides that, I'm getting rounds in with everybody. Marcos, my head coach, I'm getting rounds with him. My other head coach, Mary Gwen. It's amazing having her in there because everything she knows on the boxing aspect, and she's a little bit more around my size, so we get a bunch of rounds in all the time. And same with Chris. He's a bigger dude, but he's fast, he's quick, and the pace that he puts on you is it's kind of more of a pace around people my size. So it's nice. And then also all of the family from it's nice having the family from Agima. We'll have Dante, Aiden, David. They come up all the not all the time, but whenever they do come up, we'll get some rounds in, rolling rounds in, and it's nice mixing it up with them all the time.
No, those guys are great. All of them are awesome from Agima. And it's almost like a 1A, 1B when it comes to Agima and Rise. I feel like they kind of coincide because of that connection to Marco and obviously MG, who is great as well. You talking a little bit about your family and everything. When did you guys start training? You mentioned at a young age, but when specifically? How old were you?
Honestly, the far back as I can remember, I know people always say that it was never like a consistent daily training type thing. But when my dad would go to the gym, he'd come home after working out or whatever and be late at night and he'll just be teaching us basic combos, how to get our stance up as like a 7, 6 year old. I was getting my footwork in. He's telling me to turn my punches in, making sure I'm twisting with my hips, all the fundamentals I learned at a super young age, not really consistent training until just these past few years.
And what was the family dynamic like when they heard that you were going to be making a kickboxing debut and now an MMA debut in a couple of weeks?
The excitement was real, and the support is amazing, and I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anybody or for anything. I mean, like it's awesome to see how excited they get for me.
Yeah.
My mom and certain people, they got the nervousness, they're scared, but seeing my dad and how excited he gets, and my uncles and my little brother, it's amazing to be able to finally do this.
Did you get the chance to go to the Friday night event the night before? Because your teammate Jesus Graterol, he had his debut, and I believe he had pretty massive pop. Were you one of those people cheering for him?
Yes, sir. I
Yeah.
was. I definitely was. That's little big bro right there, man. Seeing him go in there and put on a show like that, it was the best feeling. I had my voice the day after when I was talking to everybody. If you would have noticed, it was gone because I was screaming my heart out along with all of the teammates. So it was nice seeing him put it off like that. Helped
I'm
me
all
feed off his energy too. He set it off, So after seeing him put on for the team like that, and then knowing the next day I got to do it, it was good to feed off it.
It's always so interesting when you see these established gyms. We talked about, Chris has been competing for a couple of years, Kent's been around forever. But when it's these new guys, yourself, Jesus, and your brother as well, are there a lot of names that maybe the fans don't know about that are going to be coming out of Rise Boxing in the near future?
Yes, sir. I wouldn't say a lot, but there's definitely a couple.
Yeah.
There's a couple on the roster as of right now that I know that they're just kind of waiting for the opportunity, looking for the right opportunity, making sure it's the right matchup. But there's going to be a couple new faces that arise, and super excited to have all the team, putting on shows.
So I'm assuming that you heard from the broadcast, Andrew Boquette giving me a call just the day before your fight and
Yes, sir.
telling me this great story. I'm curious if you can kind of relay it and maybe give your editor's spin to it.
Yeah, so that's funny. One of my buddies beforehand. Well, also you mentioned that you heard about the story and you might talk about it on the broadcast. And I guess one of my buddies, as soon as he found out that I was going to be fighting, he reached out to Andrew because he does the broadcasting.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, hey, like, you got to tell this story. And Andrew was like, oh, well, I won't be broadcasting that show, but I'll make sure I definitely relay the story. And I told him no. Although don't tell them that story. They don't need to be hearing about that. It was definitely a good memory. It was a fun memory. Just a couple of years back, Andrew and I, we have some mutual friends. Kevin Torres and George Torres, they both fought. I think they were under Andrew at the time. He was their coach. So uh, we all just went out one night, got to hang out. Things ended up taking a turn to it. People have their drinks, start, not
Sure.
behaving well. Next thing you know, we're outside of the barn. It's just like you said, it was a melee, like a bunch of people fighting. Trying not to get hitting whoever is coming towards me. And Andrew just happened to, I guess, they be in the line of fire. I'm kind of head tucked, just throwing some shots and I hit him with a pretty good one. And I remember it was funny. We like both stopped mid fight and we looked at each other. And I think you remember you told me like I'm on your side, like I'm like we're on the same team. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I gave him a quick apology, then went right back to it. But afterwards, he told me he's like, hey, for a guy your size, he's like you pack a good punch. He's like, I was not expecting that. And I was like, thanks, so I appreciate that.
Oh man, that's so great. I love Andrew. I love getting the chance to work with him. And when he gave me the call, I had to. I'm so sorry
Oh no,
if you
no,
didn't want that story to get out. But
it's not like that. I just thought it was funny. Like, it's just one of those stories.
do you still get the chance to either talk and hang out with Andrew, and do you get to train with him ever at all down at Jeremy Horns?
I have not. Unfortunately, I haven't seen Andrew probably. It's been a couple of years since around that time. Um, we used to hang out with the same mutual friends a little bit. I'm sure he's busy with all of his stuff, especially with all the gym and fighting. But I haven't gotten a chance to train with him or really hang out with him. I'm always wishing him the best of luck and always rooting for him from a distance.
Talking a little bit about July 26th, Price, Utah, headed up to where this whole thing started years ago. Being around this combat space in Utah, do you remember those early days of Fierce Fighting Championship in Price, Utah, or was it still just a little bit too remote for the masses to know about?
No, I do remember it. It was It was awesome seeing how much it's grown and everything. See, even the familiar faces, it's really cool. Like Dominic out of the pit. There's times where I remember seeing back one of the first events I ever went to was watching him fight, and then seeing him throughout, all of these years. He would come up to Rise and train with us every now and then seeing him do his bare knuckle thing. It's awesome. And then even back to my buddy Kevin when he competed out, it was out in Price too. So one of the very first events I even heard about Fierce was going all the way out in price and supporting my buddies, and it's cool. I think it's amazing that they've grown so much and that they've been at it for this many years, and they don't seem to be slowing down. So that's great.
Is it wild to think that you're going to be making your debut on a price card out there where you trekked out to go and see one of your buddies fight years ago?
Yes, sir. It is. It's awesome. It's like a full circle moment type thing, because even then I've always like talked about, oh, I'm gonna do this one day.
Yeah.
That's when like the talks about, oh, I need to find a gym and everything really started. Kevin and George Torres, they really pushed me to try to find a gym back then. I just, had my head up my ass doing other things and didn't really pull the trigger on it. But that's when all of it was already an idea. It's been a passion and dream of mine for years. So all
What?
those thoughts were, it
Yeah.
was real. So it's a full circle moment.
What made you shift your focus? What was maybe the thing that made you go, I really need to do this?
I just started growing up more, realizing that the time's not always going to be in my favor. There's a lot of things that have happened in my life that show me, you can't really waste time. You got to do it for the people who can't do it, for the people who, you know, don't have the chance to do it, and that's why I'm not going to waste any more time on it. That it's going to be either now or never.
Last quick question from me. I'm just curious because you come from that boxing background. You talked about Dominico and all the things that he's done. They just had an event here. Would you ever tip your dip your toes into the waters of BKFC, maybe a boxing match, something like that? I know that MG and Marco are also putting on events every once in a while up in Park City.
Oh, definitely. So, speaking back in, they have an event coming up. It's going to be shortly after my fight. I don't look past my fight at all. I just got to stay ready for that and make sure that's going to be my main focus. But definitely in the near future, I'm going to be taking boxing fights if that's what comes up instead of MMA. Anything to stay busy with it. Stay fresh and everything. The whole bare knuckle thing, that's a different game. That's those are some dogs in there. I'm a dog myself too, but. I, I don't want to say, yeah, I'm going to jump into bare knuckle next and this and that.
I love it. Pure curiosity out of me. No pressure whatsoever. I
Oh,
think
yeah,
that you've got enough on your plate headed into July 26th, so it'll be great.
yes, sir.
Ruben, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to your showing.
Thank you so much, boss. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate everything you guys are doing. I can't wait.